Today, we're taking a really close look at BYD's luxury sub-brand Denza. We're going to unpack their absolute jaw-dropping performance specs, some seriously groundbreaking charging tech, and a global pricing strategy that is, well, it's pretty much terrifying legacy automakers right now. So if you thought the whole EV transition was settling into a predictable rhythm, yeah, the data we're about to look at is absolutely going to change your perspective. To kick things off, I want you to ask yourself this. What exactly happens when an electric vehicle combines the world's most famous secret agent, Daniel Craig, with absolute, unadulterated hypercar performance? See, BYD didn't just want to quietly launch a new car in Europe. They wanted to make a massive cinematic statement. By partnering up with the guy who played James Bond for 15 years, Denza is aggressively signaling that they aren't just here to compete on battery efficiency. No, they're here to compete on supreme luxury, spy thriller aesthetics, and just raw power. And speaking of raw power, this is the number that completely defines it, 1.96. You get a staggering 0 to 100 km/h time of just 1.96 seconds, delivered by the new Denza Z Supercar. To put that into perspective, guys, that's literally faster than a Formula One car off the line. We're talking about 1,604 metric horsepower generated by a triple-motor E3 platform. It's the kind of figure that just instantly demands the attention of every single legacy performance brand on the planet. Okay, so moving straight into part one, meet the Denza lineup. You see, BYD isn't just releasing one single halo car to grab a few quick headlines. They are actively attacking every luxury segment with a really calculated multi-body strategy. First up, we've got the newly leaked Z9S executive sedan. This one has a massive 3,025mm wheelbase designed specifically to capture mainstream luxury buyers who lean towards that classic, understated proportion. Then, there's the wildly popular Z9 GT. This is a shooting brake that just exploded out of the gate, surpassing 10,000 deliveries in only 2.5 months. And finally, sitting right there at the absolute pinnacle is the flagship 4-seat Z Supercar, which even has a dedicated Nordschleife track edition. Starting off with the Z9S, Denza is playing a really smart volume game here. They're strategically using cost-effective lithium iron phosphate, or LFP, batteries that are assembled by BYD's very own subsidiaries. Because they're doing this, they can target a much more competitive price bracket for entry-level luxury buyers, but without sacrificing any of that premium badge appeal. And guess what? It's totally working. Denza's overall sales hit over 18,600 units in June 2026 alone, which just shows a massive recovery and an incredible upward trajectory in their domestic market. Then we have the Z9 GT, which is just an absolute juggernaut of a shooting brake. The pure EV variant features 3 electric motors that generate a really neck-snapping 892 pound-feet of torque. Plus, it measures nearly 5.2 meters long and almost 2 meters wide. It is a massive, imposing vehicle, putting it squarely in Porsche Panamera and Taycan territory when it comes to sheer physical footprint and road presence. All right, let's move into part 2, the flash charging revolution. Because, let's be honest, all that horsepower means absolutely nothing if you're stuck sitting at a charging station for an hour, right? To fix that, Denza is utilizing BYD's new Blade Battery 2.0 alongside a staggering 1,500 kilowatt flash charging system. Now, for some context here, most fast chargers you'll find in the wild today max out around 350 kilowatts. So this 1,500 kilowatt capacity is completely redefining the entire concept of a pit stop. It makes it almost as fast as filling up a traditional gas tank. The really crucial point here is their charging mantra, which is actually super catchy. It goes, ready in 5, full in 9, cold add 3. What this means in actual practice is you can plug your car in at 10% and you'll be at 70% in just 5 minutes. Wait 4 more minutes and boom, you're at 97%. But the real kicker for me is that cold add 3 part. One of the biggest criticisms of EVs, as we know, is how the batteries suffer in freezing temperatures. Well, Denza claims that even in negative 30 degrees Celsius weather, it only takes 3 extra minutes to reach that 97% charge. That is just a massive technological flex. Which brings us to part 3, gunning for Porsche. Make no mistake, Denza's primary targets are the legacy European luxury automakers who have essentially dominated this space for decades. Let's just look at the reality on the ground in China right now. When we compare the pure electric Z9 GT against, say, the Porsche Taycan Turbo, The numbers are pretty jarring. The Denza offers 952 horsepower compared to the Porsche's 872. But the real shock? It's the price tag. The Denza starts at roughly $50,300. The Porsche is an astronomical $214,800. So the Denza offers more power for less than a quarter of the price of its legacy German equivalent in the Chinese market.
Wow.
But wait, because here's part 4, the 3x European price twist.
If you thought legacy automakers were instantly doomed based purely on those domestic Chinese numbers, you really need to look at what happens when these cars are exported to Europe. The whole pricing strategy completely flips on its head. When BYD launched the Denza Z9 GT in the UK, they didn't just slightly bump up the price to cover the shipping costs. No, they slapped a massive, towering premium on it. They took a car that starts at under $40,000 for the base model in China, and they priced the EV variant in the UK at an eye-watering 105,000 British pounds. That's about 140,000 US dollars. That is well over a 3x multiplier. They're deliberately pricing it to sit right next to the European luxury giants, rather than just undercutting them into oblivion. And their flagship models follow that exact same strategy. The Z Supercar is commanding a massive premium abroad. After pre-selling at the Goodwood Festival of Speed for around $184,000, it's officially hitting the UK market at roughly $192,000. By doing this, Denza's firmly establishing the vehicle not as some budget alternative, but as a hyper-luxury import that demands to be taken just as seriously as a Ferrari or an Aston Martin. This leads perfectly into part 5, shifting the global market. Naturally, this highly aggressive market entry, paired with that extreme pricing disparity between East and West, has ignited some really fierce debates. Looking at industry discussions, we are seeing intense market polarization. On one hand, you have folks passionately arguing that these vehicles are essentially being weaponized, subsidized by the state and sold under cost simply to disrupt and collapse European manufacturing, while allegedly ignoring ecological and labor standards. But on the flip side, others insist that this is just sour grapes. They argue China is simply out-manufacturing and out-innovating the West, and that these massive export prices just expose the heavily inflated, greedy profit margins that legacy automakers have been enjoying for years. But, stepping away from the heavy macroeconomics for a second, how does the actual consumer feel about all this? At that $140,000 European price point, the Z9 GT isn't exactly an easy sell for everyone. As one consumer review actually pointed out, specs aren't everything. They noted that a BMW iX3 offers 500 miles of range on the European WLTP standard, compared to the Denza's roughly 370 miles. And you could literally buy 2 of those BMWs for the price of one exported Denza. So to that buyer, saving 5 minutes at a hyper-fast charging station just isn't worth the massive price tag or the range trade-off. So where does this all leave us? Well, we've unpacked the staggering 1,600 horsepower performance metrics, the revolutionary 9-minute flash charging that basically eliminates range anxiety, and that fiercely debated 3x export markup strategy that BYD is deploying. It is a really fascinating complex web of engineering triumph and geopolitical economics. And honestly, it leaves us with one massive looming question. As this unprecedented wave of high-tech disruption washes over the global market, how exactly will legacy automakers evolve to survive this electric revolution?